Got Jack and Diane and Blair all calling in.
Blair's already on the line.
Okay.
Is Jacob coming? I'm not sure. Let's just go ahead and get started.
Okay. Okay. Hey, everybody. I'm going to call to order the July 19th, 2021 meeting of the Oxford Historic Preservation Commission. And the first thing we want to do is approve the agenda for this evening. If anyone has had a chance to look at it, and if there's any need for any suggested changes, revisions.
I think Ben might have had something he wants to add. Ben?
Oh, okay, Ben? There's Diane.
Hello, Camp.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you, Ben.
Great. Thank you, Camp. Everyone, I hope you're having a good evening, and it's with a saddened heart that I come with some unfortunate news, because one of our longest-serving commissioners of this commission makes his last appearance tonight. Camp Best, who's been with us for Camp, I did a quick math, and I think that you've been with us for at least 9 years. Does that sound right?
I think it's 12, actually.
12, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you've been with us for 4 terms, and you have certainly been a tremendous steward for historic preservation in our community, and oftentimes serving on this commission is it's a thankless job. There's an awful lot of time spent, reviewing the cases, going and taking a look at the homes. You sacrifice time away from your family. Every single one of you, do that. Camp, we're certainly appreciative of all the time that you have spent on this commission, and for the betterment of our community. So thank you, and we hope that you'll continue to stay active and stay involved and be engaged, and be mindful of what's happening in the Historic Preservation District. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Ben. I appreciate that very much.
And then,
I know there's probably some in the audience who will be happy to know that I'll be moving on and won't be the difficult one, but anyway.
I certainly don't think that that's the case. And that being said, we also have another commissioner making his final appearance tonight, and that's Mr. Jacob Jordan, who has been a wonderful addition to our commission over the last, 3 years now. And again, we're certainly appreciative of everything that you have done for the city of Oxford and for this commission on the betterment of historic preservation in the community. So thank you, Jacob. And with that, Camp, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Ben.
Hey, Camp.
Hey.
Camp. This is Jack. I couldn't get in with the video, and I'm here by phone, and I'm greeted with bad news and then more bad news that you're leaving and
Yes.
that Jacob is leaving. I hate to hear both of those announcements.
Well, thank you, Jack. Appreciate that, man. I thought we were just getting Jacob broken in,
I was starting to feel broken in.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you all. So let's move forward. I need someone to deliver a motion to approve the agenda for this evening, please.
So moved. Second.
All right. I have a move and a second. All in favor? Say aye, please.
Aye.
All opposed? All right. Thank you all. Okay, approving the minutes from our June 21st meeting. I know that there was one correction that needed to be added, and that was the fact that Lance was here, in fact. And so we need to make that correction that Lance was in attendance. Other than that, does anybody have any corrections or additions to the minutes?
We'll get that changed in the official record.
Okay, all right, very good. So, all in favor of approving, do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
A second, please? Second. All right,
Second.
all right, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, all right, the administrative approvals do not need to be really discussed. If you've seen those have already been approved, so we can move on past those unless anyone has any questions about those. All right, so let's move forward then. Our first case tonight is number 634, COA requested by Britt Boatwright for changes to the existing fenestration and balustrade, removal of the existing metal siding, and restoration of the existing wood siding, and changes to the rear deck at 604 South 8th Street. And Kate, do you have a presentation for us, please?
I do. I'm sharing my screen so that you guys can see the plans for our only public hearing tonight that we're going to vote on. Let's see. So we'll just start here and I'll scroll you guys through. Britt Boatwright is on the line, who is the applicant. As you guys saw in the staff report, there are several items included in this request which were listed out for you with references to the design guidelines. They include removing the existing tin siding to reveal and restore the original wood siding. The applicant's proposing to replace, and the staff recommends approval of that item. That's actually recommended in the design guidelines. And it seems like from what Britt has said, he didn't remove a ton because he was waiting for this approval, but the wood siding appears to be in okay shape beneath the metal that's been over it for several years. He is requesting to replace all wooden windows and doors and eliminate one window on the rear elevation. The doors are clearly not original and staff does not object to their removal. The window replacement is in conflict with the design guidelines, which state that the repair of historic windows is preferable to replacement. However, it also states that if it's determined that a replacement window is necessary, the replacement should retain to the degree possible the character of the historic window. Since the application was submitted by the applicant, the current application shows aluminum clad windows and the applicant has changed that to wood windows.
Okay.
And the proposed mutton width and light pattern does match existing. So if the commission chooses to approve the windows replacement, staff believes that the match is correct, that the applicant is proposing.
Okay.
And then the window that the applicant is proposing, I don't know if we have a photo of it. Oh, he'd like to block in this window on the rear addition with wood siding to match existing. That's not an original window opening, and it's on the rear of the property and it's not visible at all from the street, so staff does not take issue with that. The guidelines simply address altering original window openings. The applicant would like to raise the existing back deck. As I'm sure you all saw in the photos, it's sort of like a sunken deck, and I think he did a good job showing what he would like to do with his drawings. There'll be gates across both openings currently with vertical pickets to match existing, and he'll be raising the deck up. And I think he just wants to do that from like a use standpoint. He wants to use it differently than it is currently. The deck is proposed as a Trex material, which is acceptable in the historic district. And like I said, this area is not visible at all from the street. He wants to modify the front balustrade and the front dormer. Let me pull up a photo of the front of the house. So as I'm sure you guys saw on the survey that was done in the early 2000s, which was attached, this property actually had a different balustrade with more of an X pattern like what the applicant is proposing. When you walk around on that street, it's clear that this building has been altered. It's still listed as contributing, and I believe that it does contribute in the historic district, but it seems to be like a direct neighbor of the house, a twin of the house next door, a mirror twin, which doesn't have a balustrade and doesn't have a front dormer. There was a big renovation done to this house when they added that rear addition that we were looking at earlier, and it seems like the front roof line was extended, and then they added that dormer and the balustrade. So he's proposing pretty minimal changes. He wants to put in smaller windows with a little bit more siding and remove those teeny shutters on either side of the dormer, and then replace the balustrade. And staff is recommending approval of that element. It seems in keeping with the style of the house. And the last item, item 5, is a proposal to install permeable grass pavers in front of the building, a parking area turnaround, and there is a plan that shows that in here. Let me pull that up. So that area that he has hatched would be the parking turnaround. The guidelines recommend that new paved driveways or parking areas are installed in the least conspicuous part of the historic property. Do not install circular driveways or create parking areas in front of historic buildings unless documented historically. This request is directly in conflict with the guidelines, so staff is recommending denial of item 5. So that was a lot to take in. In summary, staff recommends approval of items 1, 3, and 4, with a condition that the necessary rear yard setback variance is obtained from the Planning Commission. Regarding item 2, if the commission does determine that replacing the windows is acceptable, staff recommends approval of the wood replacement windows as proposed by the applicant, and staff recommends denial of item 5. So, do you guys have any questions about the staff report?
Thank you. Any questions, comments?
And Britt is on the line if anyone has questions for him.
So what kind of condition are the windows on the front porch?
What is the condition? Is that the question?
Yeah, the 2 windows on the front, under the front porch out of the weather.
Those are out of the weather. Every window in the building, I'm not able to get any of the windows to open. I've got some broken muttons. There's storm windows that I plan to remove. I've not removed them yet. I just didn't want to disturb anything until we had met. So my goal is to get these windows where they're operable, and right now they're not. And so if any of these are salvageable, I don't have a problem keeping a salvageable window. I just don't know that they are. The folks that I had come look at it didn't think I could get I think they've just been painted multiple times, and I'm not sure that I can salvage them, and I've not tried, obviously. I've not had anybody go in and try to pull them out or loosen them. But over the time, it appears they just continue to be painted. They don't line up on the inside, so if the locking mechanism don't line up. In dealing with older homes with older windows, very difficult to try to salvage.
Any other questions, comments, concerns about the windows? Nope. Okay. How about any of the other points that the staff recommends approval on? Are there any questions, comments about those? All right. What about point number 5, where the staff has recommended denial? Did you guys discuss with the applicant any alternatives to the proposal?
Yeah, there's not really anywhere else on the lot that the applicant could park, and Britt can speak to this more if you guys would like, but he has a shared driveway with a neighbor, and there's an easement for him for use of that driveway, so I don't believe he would intend to park here every day, but he wanted the option in case there was an issue with a shared driveway. But there's also street parking on that street, and there are also some issues in the land development code with parking. I believe what he's proposing is not over the minimum amount, but I think you can't have more than 2 parking spaces in your front yard. There's something in the land development code as well that would be an issue.
Okay.
Allow me to chime in.
Yes.
Oh, thanks.
Please.
So Yeah, Kate's correct. You're limited in the conservation overlay district to not more than 360 feet. Square feet of parking area in a front yard. I don't suspect that this area would exceed that amount. To Kate's point about the design guidelines, parking is typically preferred in the side or the rear portion of a house. That's how it's been done for years. But this is also, this lot does carry its own uniqueness and circumstances with shared driveway and things like that. So I think that's what Britt is trying to accomplish here, is to at least have some sort of a parking pad where he's not dependent on the shared driveway or partially shared driveway when the neighbors are in town. So that's what he's trying to accomplish.
How wide is the shared driveway?
Britt,
I'm looking at my
probably about 20 feet wide. It's pretty. You can get two cars side by side, but it's not the easiest thing to do.
So and Ben nailed it, and so did Kate, and they had told me ahead of time their stance, and I would totally respect it. Here's the challenge, and again, it's my problem, not y'all's problem, but problem nonetheless, is I have an easement, right, to get into the driveway, because as you can see from that survey that Kate had, if you could scroll back just to kind of explain a little bit, and I think it's obvious, but just in case, I'd like to just kind of clarify if you can keep scrolling to the survey, right there. So here's what I'm concerned about. If I come home and there are cars in the neighbor's driveway, I have an easement, but I don't have any right to his driveway if his car's parked there. And so I'm in a real bind if I can't get in and he's got his cars parked in his driveway, but it's in my way. And so I'm just looking for some pressure relief. And that's what I've proposed here, is an area that I could quickly, you can see I can stay on my drive and slip into that front corner without getting on his drive. If he's got a car that's blocking me and he won't move it, it's my property at that point, and I could have it towed. The on-street parking, it's yellow curb in front of my house. It's not yellow curb in front of the house across the street, but there's only about 3 spaces across the street. And so on a busier day, busier weekend, it could be a real problem getting to my house. And so I'm trying to do it the most soft way I can, and did a bunch of research on different components. And so this grass paver component, again, I don't plan to park on it every day, and so I do think that I can maintain it as grass. That's the goal. It will be irrigated, so I will have irrigation on this yard. It'll actually, you can put sod over this product, so I do plan to sod over it. But if I get in a bind and need to park, then that's what I'm looking for. And again, it's interesting. I know y'all are challenged with this from time to time when you've got certain neighbors have certain things and other neighbors don't. And so I did drive around just to see how other people with these tight lots manage it, and I did submit several pictures of very similar concepts all around the historic, which is, I did not realize parking in front of the house was an issue. I didn't think this would be a challenge because I had seen it. So just in my mind, I think I can soften it better than the neighbors have done. And I've got a bit of a hardship with not able to get into the drive. That's my problem. I know. I bought the house, and I had a survey before I bought the house, so I'm not. It's my problem, but it's still a challenge, and I think I can do it tastefully, and would recommend that Historic consider allowing me to do it.
So, comments upon that, commissioners? Thoughts?
Well, the one thing I was going to ask for, there other parking like what Mr. Boatwright is requesting, and I see that there is. Are they in that neighborhood or just around the historic district?
So the third picture is, I could throw a baseball to the third picture, the next one, right there. That's at 8th Street. It's literally, I can't tell you the exact, I should know the street. I think it's maybe Jefferson. I could be wrong, but it's literally 3 houses down at the corner. That was a renovation that was done just a few years ago. The other properties are not as close, but all the other ones. One is on is behind Oxford Floral, and the other one is actually on Jefferson. This one is, yeah, that one there is kind of behind Oxford Floral.
And so your intention is to put something down that resembles grass, so it's not as obvious, is that correct? Yes, ma'am, this product, and I put some exhibits of it here. Yeah, there we go. There's the product overview. So they would put crushed stone down, then this matte surface so that it's permeable, and then over the mat, you can either plant grass in the mat, or you can put sod over the top of the mat. And my plan is to put sod over the top of the mat, and all it does is if a car drives on it, it just doesn't rut it up. It holds firm.
Let me add something to further complicate this, because there's another issue here as it pertains to lot coverage. Kate, if you wouldn't mind going back to that survey. And so the reason, and it could also be a design choice by Britt, but one of the primary reasons here for using the grass pavers is that, in this district you're limited to certain percentage of impervious coverage, and as you can see, a large portion of the site, actually probably beyond what is allowed, is actually covered with impervious surface, whether it's the building footprint, the patio, the sidewalk, or portions of that concrete drive. So Britt was looking for alternative options, other than concrete, asphalt, something like that, and so that's where he's come with the grass paver option. We have had other places in Oxford that have attempted to put in a grass paver, although I don't know that it's been I don't know how successful it's been, in applying it there, but it seems like he's found a slightly different product here that may prove to be better.
So I guess the point is he would not be allowed to put in a solid concrete because of the requirements. Okay.
Because of the lot coverage.
Yeah.
Can he put in partially pervious pavers that he's shown on there with the gravel?
Yeah.
He can do that as well. He's got my just a personal opinion, but the grass, that's great. You can park on it. It's durable. But you look like a student parking in somebody's front yard because you don't know what's under that grass. It just looks like grass. You're pulled up in the grass. That's what it looks like. As opposed to the pavers or some designated parking space.
Yeah, but he's proposing the grass one.
I know.
Yeah, okay.
So, Mr. Boatwright, would you consider an alternative, some more substantial pavers rather than just the grass?
Sure. I was just trying to soften it. I don't plan to park there frequently, and I was just trying to make it look as much like a front yard 95% of the time, but I'm certainly open to other type of pavers that would look more like the ones I showed, where they're pervious, but they're not grass, they're just some type of a gravel under it.
Ben, are there products out there that would accomplish that without increasing his lot coverage?
Well, I think you've shown a couple examples inside this packet that,
Yeah.
I think that might be what Joel was even suggesting. Keep going. Yeah, even something like that, a brick paver, as long as it's in sand, it's truly pervious, then I think that would be fine. And you might even be able to soften that with a little bit of landscaping in front that helps screen that and shields it from view.
This is Blair. May I speak up?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm sympathetic, certainly, to the parking issue. We park on the street on South 11th, and I love these grass pavers. The whip folks down the street have them, and when they're not parked on, it just looks like yard. But I think the idea of softening this would be great. Even as I look at the picture of the home, there's 2 phases of boxwood in the front yard, and it would be, if you could soften it and maybe have, park inside one of the bases or something, just kind of keep that, those soft boxwood there might help.
Yes, and so I should have stated, I plan to keep that wall that's already in front of the house. You might want to slide to that picture, Kate. I don't plan on removing the wall. I don't guess there's a great picture of the front, but there's a brick wall that runs across the front. I plan to leave the brick wall across the front, and I plan to keep some landscaping behind that wall for just that reason, so that you won't be able to see what I'm saying, exactly what you just said. But I do plan to keep the wall across the front, so it's definitely going to be blocked. There you go.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Boatwright, are you saying that you are receptive to the grass pavers that are both paver and grass grows in the holes in that paver?
Yeah, I'm open to that.
Are you already sharing that driveway with the house to your right? I'm sorry, I'm looking at where is your driveway going to be if you don't share that one?
Well, it's still shared. It's just, this will allow me, as you can see on this picture, to drive into the driveway and take a quick left.
Okay.
And be able to park. That driveway is at an angle, and okay.
So you are going to have to share the driveway. That's
yes.
Okay.
And I'm told that the prior person that owned the home and the neighbor here have not had problems, but clearly I don't have, my easement only allows me access if he's not using it. I can't, I can't make him move
right
unless he's on my driveway. If I come, and with these homes being so close to the university, and I used to live across the street, I know how packed these are from Thursday to Sunday on, lots of weekends in the fall and spring during baseball and even basketball and other times of the year. As you can see, I've got a yellow curb in front of my house, so that's not an option.
Right. Okay, anybody else have any comments, questions about that? Personally, I think when you're making this kind of investment in a historic home in our town, that we could accommodate you in some way. I know shared driveways are really, potential for disaster. There's so many problems with shared driveways. So I'm thinking if we can help the applicant in some way, I'd like to do that. I'd like to hear from the rest of the commission. Your thoughts?
As best I understand all that's been said, I would be supportive of this space that we're talking about if it were a grass paver. I could support that.
Blair supports it too.
Okay, others, any other?
Exactly where is the...
Well, I actually appreciate very much all the research that the applicant has gone through to present various things to us to look at. I also think that little wall is going to block a lot of the material, and your eye's going to go more to that, I think. And I'm in favor of doing it.
Okay. Good. Anybody else want to comment on that? Okay, so I guess what we need is to take a look at making a motion to approve based upon certain things, right?
Should we let Kate approve the parking lot material?
I think that would be good. Yep. Okay, all right. So we've got the 5 points in the application. The only other one, was there any other concern about the windows, or are we good with going forward with the replacement of the windows?
Sounds like it wants to replace them.
Okay. Okay. So the only thing that we need to make sort of an addendum to is to put in the motion that the applicant will work with Kate on satisfactory paving in the front.
Yeah.
Okay. So do I have a motion then to approve this particular COA number 634?
Kent, did you want to include landscaping with that as well for Kate to review?
Okay. To include a requirement of landscaping being approved by the staff as well. So do I have a motion to approve COA 634?
I so move.
I need a second.
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye, please.
Aye.
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 All opposed? All right, case number 634 is approved.
Thanks, Britt.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your cooperation.
Thank you. All right, case number 625 was withdrawn. Now we'll move to a complimentary review of possible demolition of the existing building and construction of a new single-family home at 1410 Madison Avenue, requested by the applicant Carter Edmondson. Kate, you want to?
I'm going to recuse myself.
Okay.
On this, do we have to recuse on complimentary?
Technically for complimentary, you don't have to.
You don't, okay.
Yeah, if you want, yeah.
Okay.
I'm not going to make a presentation, really, since it's a complimentary review, and we also haven't received any new plans for the project. This should look very familiar to everyone.
Right.
The applicant wanted to come before the commission and talk about possible changes to the design of the new construction and see if the commission would be open to demolition and new construction.
Okay.
It's not a vote, so it's simply to talk about this with applicant.
Very good. Okay.
And Jonathan Maddox is going to present.
Yeah. Okay, Jonathan. Tell us what you got today.
Thank you. So I appreciate this opportunity to continue this conversation that began last month, where I was on vacation, couldn't be in the room with you. And I must admit, I was a little caught off guard when we started talking so sincerely about keeping the existing house and not demolition, particularly because the house that's in question is listed as non-contributing, which has always been kind of a marker of a house that wasn't quite, we shouldn't be quite as concerned about preserving as those that are contributing. Secondly, because it has a huge and poorly proportioned and badly maintained addition, that's pretty clearly no one would want to keep, but not the least of which because in February complimentary review with the owner of the property, the Frymarks, I left the understanding of that meeting that everyone was open to the idea of the house being demolished. And so my client, who is a potential purchaser of this property and doing their due diligence, wanted to look at possibilities for the property and to ensure that they could go forward with demolition. So it wasn't the conversation while on vacation I was prepared to have, and so I felt like we really needed to a chance to come and just talk with you about it. Since the meeting, I have talked to numerous neighbors and people in this neighborhood who were surprised and felt that it was unfortunate that we didn't get approval, not only just for the removal of the really bad addition, but for the whole project. One of the neighbors, Mr. Murray Avant, is here and wanted to speak. His family actually owned the property prior to Mr. Woodward, who lived there until he passed away a year or so ago. So if we could just let Murray tell us about some of the history of the property.
Well, I appreciate this opportunity.
Come on up, Murray. Murray, if you'll just state your name for the record,
Right,
please.
I am Murray Avant, and I'm the next door neighbor here. And I appreciate this opportunity to set the record straight on this house. I read the article, I think it was in hottytoddy.com, and I said, oh my gosh, you're describing a house that no longer exists. You see, all this property, that my grandfather's old house and the house in which I live in right now, all that was Avant property as of 1900. At some point, my grandfather passed away, I guess in the 60s. He left that lot, which was the south, that would be the, no, excuse me, that's the east lot of that property, left it to my brother. Now, that house burned to the ground. I don't know how much was left of it, but sometime in the late 70s, it burned, what house was there. And I know that the insurance company declared that house a complete loss on the insurance claim. And my brother got $25,000 on the claim of the house that had burned down. Then in 1985, the lot was sold by my brother to Sam Woodard, who took over the lot there. I don't know how much of a house was left there or how much existed, but I do know that the house that was there burned in the 70s to the point that it was declared a complete loss by the insurance agency. And if you know insurance agencies, they're not real keen on having to do that, you know. So anyway, I know he's going to bring in some other factors here, but I wanted to bring that out, that the insurance claim was $25,000 for a complete loss, and he later sold the lot for $11,000. Now, admittedly, God, when you start looking about property and house price in Oxford, that's something else. But even then, in the 80s, you would expect if there was a substantial structure on that property, that lot and that house would have gone for more than $11,000, I would expect. I know he's going to bring this in to you, but I've been living next to Sam. He's my good neighbor. Wonderful builder, too. He was something else in that house. But he would always come over and drive back by the house, and he'd hit that curve, you know, because that was his curve. That's how he got into his driveway. I know that Jonathan's going to present this later on, but if you look at the curve cut in front of that house, you can see that that was not the house that was there when that curve cut was placed there years ago. And the material in that curve cut is the exact same material that's in Madison Avenue. So the last time it was paid, that curve cut was created. It looks like it was created to service both this house and the house to its immediate east. But, you know, that's speculation there. But obviously, the curve cut itself runs right down the middle of the house. It makes no sense. If this was the original house there from 1925, that the curve cut, which was most likely created sometime afterwards, would go right down the middle of the house. It makes no sense whatsoever that it was this house that existed at that time. I think that you'll be pointing this out too, but I wish you'd look at the roofing. The roofing of the smaller cottage house and the addition are virtually, they're the same. You can see they've aged the same, they rusted about the same. You can always hear that. When the rain hits his roof over there, you could hear it about half a block away. So my speculation is all of this was done virtually at once by Sam. That's what I gather from that. But that's the main facts I wanted to point out to you. And also, the neighborhood, all the immediate neighbors are in universal support of the house coming down. This is not, again, it's not a contributing house. It's not, I do believe, an old house. And I know you've got to, and I do admire, it's a noble cause to save as many houses as you possibly can from demolition. Many years ago, I came from the Board of Aldermen and testified for them because we were losing one a day, it seemed like, in our neighborhoods. And what I wanted is to see something that was a plan given to whatever board, the Board of Aldermen or whatever at that time, that before you tear something down, you show us what you're going to put in its place. And of course, in this case, they've met that qualification. Also, I admire y'all's work on the Historic Commission. Many years ago, I wrote the history of the Jefferson-Madison neighborhood in application for it to become a historic district. So I do appreciate all your service on this commission. I know it's not a job you get a lot of thanks for. I understand that fully. But I just wanted to take this opportunity to say, from everything I know, from my family history and everything, that house has not been there since 1925. Again, the house that was there on that lot that my brother owned burned down in the late 70s, and he sold the lot to Sam. in 1985. I thank you. Appreciate it. Any other questions I can?
Anybody have any questions for
Yeah, it would have been a big
Murray?
help if we'd done that
It would have been,
previous to rundown. Been a huge help. And I'd like to also point out that we never were against tearing down the rear of that house.
Right.
The only thing that was ever in question was the evidently not very old front of the house.
If what Murray's saying is factual, we don't, you're coming up with facts that are different from what our survey says. So we got two different opinions here. Okay?
Again, I don't know where that information came from.
Right.
I mean, you have the facts in front of you that's a non-contributing property.
Well, it's non-contributing because
of the
additions, yeah. Which we're agreeing that we're willing to tear down.
Right, I would really think that it's a non-contributing property because that house is not that old. And I think they got it wrong on the survey or whatever in terms of that. I remember they did, a lot of the survey was done very quickly after we declared we were applying ourselves for to become a historic district in the Jefferson Madison neighborhood. And I do apologize that I wasn't here the last time. I had another meeting and I was kind of taken back when I heard that their proposal was not approved. But that's on me too. I'll just say that I do apologize. I wasn't here to make that testimony the last time.
Thank you, Murray.
I got one question.
Yes,
How does the addition impact the original structure? Is it something that can easily be separated from the original structure? But Chris may answer this question too. The addition appears to be is intertwined in, like the roof. It goes into the roof.
I'd say it's be like dissecting half a body of a human being, expecting the rest to survive and live. That is built that much in that house, which again leads me to believe it was virtually all built at once. Because if you look at that, and you look at that from my garage window when I go up there and work out my little gym I built up there, you can see that house is, they are connected to the point where you tear one down, the other's gonna have to come with it. I don't see how that cottage was there and he built into it unless he built it all at once. Now, he was a master builder, and again, when you look at the curb cut, he didn't have a curb cut when he came in his driveway. He had all kinds of timber and lumber and all that he'd bring in. He'd always be bouncing that stuff, and I'd always kid him about the fact, when are you going to get to the city of Oxford to give you a curb cut? And he'd laugh and just pass it on and all that. But he was something else in terms of build. Mother used to call that house, who lived next door at the time. She moved over there a year after Sam bought the lot. She used to call it Sam's Town, because she thought it was just, it was never going to stop when we was building it. I think Sam actually had the ambition at one time that his house would be the tallest in Oxford. And
he got pretty close.
He was an amazing person. He did all that on his own.
It's a little bit of a difficult position for staff to be in, because the previous survey and our updated surveys both note that the house is much older than the 80s. And, I was able to find the footprint of this house on the 1925 Sanborn map. And also it's a direct copy of the house at 1420 Madison. So either it did burn and they just reconstructed it exactly as it is, or not. But when you go to look at the house, it appears older than that to me, but also I wasn't here, so
How do you explain the curb cut?
I don't know,
Is the curb cut for the sidewalk? Is that what it's for, that comes to the street?
I have some pictures of that I can share.
To me, the curb cut is a smoking gun. This house just has not been there long.
Hey, Michael, can we switch to the overhead? Michael or Tyler?
Murray, you talking about the curb cut where the sidewalk is now leading to the front door?
I'm talking about the curb cut for his house, the original curb cut for the house there.
I'm asking you if that's the same one as there appears to be a curb cut where the sidewalk hits the street there.
You can see the curb cut there.
That's the curb cut what I'm
it's
talking
that
about.
wide, okay.
Which is peculiar on the street. No other house has a curb cut like that. And as he's referring to, how the house was actually.
That's what he used to ride over every time.
Driving
That's not the curb cut.
it's a peculiarity certainly for this site. Every other house on the street has a curb cut that goes along the side of the house, much like how this property was actually used.
Mm-hmm.
This is Blair. May I say something?
Yes, please, Blair.
I wanted to return to Joel's comment a second ago and let that be heard again. We did not disapprove of the demolition. We just, I believe that last month's meeting was the plan for the rebuild. We discussed having something that looked more cohesive with the other bungalows on the side of that street, like where Ted Owenby lives, more of an architectural symmetry on that street.
Mm-hmm.
We were not against tearing it down, the whole thing, right?
Well, we denied the demolition.
Oh, okay.
We did.
That's right.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And Blair, to your point, I mean, that's really why I wanted to have this conversation today. Getting to the point that we were already at, it takes quite a bit of time, quite a bit of resources from my client. And before I go and try to do something else that might pass, I just wanted to have a better conversation about the things that were acceptable or weren't acceptable in what we saw. We really didn't have a chance to talk about the new house very much. Mm-hmm. And it really wasn't appropriate to once the demolition was denied. But I wanted to come back and talk again about what we are proposing, about why we are proposing it the way we are, and hopefully find some middle ground so this project can go forward. You know, my client won't be purchasing this property if he's not able to build, you know, mm-hmm. the home he intends to live in. So, you know, which can't really start from where we're already given on this site.
Well, here's some good news. I was one of the ones that voted against the demolition. I will not be here any longer. So there's some good news for you. How about that? Now,
can I pipe in real quick?
Yes, please.
I apologize. I had an opportunity to go over there to this house just this morning with Kate. The owners, the Frymarks, just happened to be there and let us inside the house. I disagree that this house is dependent on the two can be separated, I think, relatively easily. Inside the house, there's access through a closet that allowed me to see the existing or the old roof of the small cottage, I guess you'd call it. The small cottage had a asphalt shingle roof on it. It was obvious, been there for a long time. So to Murray's point that the tin roof was probably done at about the same time, yeah, I'd agree with that. I think what it appeared to me is that the tin roof was placed over the top of an asphalt shingle roof that's on the little cottage house. That's just exactly what I saw.
It's hard to know which way you're looking.
Yeah. So you can see the asphalt shingle over here. That's what's in the background.
The double two-by-four that you see right there in the foreground of that picture is what's supporting the roof of the addition. Mm-hmm. If I'm gonna be honest with you, there's some things over there that are kind of scary looking, just to be honest, from a structural standpoint.
Right.
But could they be separated? Certainly, I believe they could be separated.
I think it comes from the vantage point which you observe walking inside the house. Like I say, if you come over my garage and look at that from the roof level over there, you can see how far built it is. I respectfully, I just don't know that, disagree with the point, I don't know that's accurate. But then again, I'm not an engineer, and clearly, Sam is not an engineer. He can build anything.
I would agree with that after seeing this house 100%.
So from your inspection, though, do you feel like the home does appear to be older than the 70s or 80s? Does it appear to, maybe I'm putting you on the spot.
That's a tough one. I'd have to give you an honest answer, and I don't know.
Okay.
I just honestly don't know. I looked under the house at the wood, the floor joists. You could see a lot of the wood that's up there. It's all planed and it's all a nominal thickness. Just a real quick Google search this afternoon. I looked, and the standards for lumber grading kind of came into play around the 1920s, right after World War I, around 1917, 18 timeframe. They started trying to standardize lumber sizing, so that based on that, it could be conceivable that the lumber that's over there has been there since the 20s or 30s.
Okay.
Well, let me add one more thing.
Murray,
Can I ask you?
would you mind coming up front if you're going to speak, please? Thank you.
Sam was always bringing.
Camp,
Hey, somebody speaking?
Camp,
Who's
can
that?
I ask?
Jack?
Camp, can I ask who the gentleman is that went over to the house earlier today and has been speaking?
It's Chris Carter.
Yeah, I'm Chris Carter. I serve as the building official for the city.
Okay, sure. Yeah, thank you.
What confuses this issue even more is that Sam, if you ever saw this truck when he was bringing in, riding on that driveway, bumping on that driveway, he was always bringing different materials in and all that. He could have brought the materials in on the construction of that house from just about anywhere. I mean, he had his hands on everything and he had access to everything. And that's just, well, I just want to make that point. I don't know that those materials were there originally. I couldn't tell you. I just know that the house burned to the point that it was declared a total loss. And I know that Sam had access to all kinds of building materials from all kinds of places.
Okay. Thank you, Murray.
You know, another fact that just makes this cloudier is that even though the insurance company declared it a total loss, that doesn't mean that some of the original materials were not used and reused in the new construction.
Thank you, Jack. Jonathan, do you have it?
There's a lot of discussion, a lot of points we can have about the demolition. Unfortunately, we really can't make any headway on that today because we're not in a position of
Just
taking
doing
a
a
vote on it.
complimentary review, yes.
But one of the examples of things that we're going to have a real problem with, it's good that Chris is here, is this is a picture looking up into the roof of the front one-story portion. So even if we were to get rid of everything else and left with this, those are 2x4s that are on a spacing that I think is a little bit greater than 24 inches on center. By no means is that adequate framing. So we're gonna have to reframe the whole roof of this thing, presumably, if we were to keep that part of the cottage. But I really wanna use this time to talk about how we can be successful next time, particularly with a new house, because I think that's really what our request is going to be, because as I said, there are a lot of reasons we can talk about why we should demo this, and we will at the appropriate time, but there's two parts of this, and we had only a little bit of conversation about the proposal, but I worry that there were things in the proposal that might have been swaying someone's opinion about whether the new house was better than what was there.
Okay.
So if we may,
yes,
just
please.
want to talk about that. Too much paper. So there is the image that you saw last month among many others, but I think this is the one that tells the story about how we're approaching this project the best. We are striving to get a house that's around 3,500 square feet on this property. The only way to do that, because of the size of the lot, is to have 2 stories. When I first spoke to the Edmondsons about this, they were describing a house a lot like Robert Kayat's house. Full 2-story front porch, that sort of thing. And in a lot of discussion, we really, I helped them understand that that really wasn't probably appropriate for that site. And we needed to try to mediate between the massing of a lot of the houses that are on the west and the cottages that line the rest of the Madison on the east. To kind of help define that zone a little more, here's an image. So here's our house in question. You'll notice that everything around here is of a larger scale, and these houses are smaller scale. So, in fact, we're one of the properties that's a larger scale.
Please speak into the microphone.
Sorry, I walked away to point, Jack. So I was saying that there are two scales of houses on this street, and currently we're in the larger scale, but we're at that point where on one side it's one thing and on the other side is the other. So we were trying to use this opportunity to give them all of the things that they needed in the house while trying to be in the middle of the massing. So doing that, we pushed the second story completely to the rear of the house, which you can see if you look down the driveway like this illustration shows. But if you're in front of the house or walking down the street in front of it, you really don't see the second story at all. Very unlike the 3.5-story addition that is right behind the front of the cottage that's there now. One of the things I did talk about a little bit last time was the importance of a front porch to my client. Of course, there's a little stoop cover there now. There are others like it further down the street. But we can't achieve a porch like this with a renovation. So another reason we'd be looking to do it in new construction. We're also setting the front wall of this house, which is also the front of the front porch, where the current front wall of the house is now. So we're pulling back a little bit off the street. It's important to align with things in these older districts, and we don't want to propose that we build a front porch onto a footprint of what's already there. And that's like a big enough front porch to actually go sit out there and meet some of these neighbors who've been supportive of this project. So that is why, another reason why we sort of took the massing the way we did and pulled the porch inside of the front footprint. We were also discussing last time how this house compares on the site. Part of it is what I was just talking about, how our front wall, including the front of the porch, aligns with the current house. I'm going to walk over and put this on the table. It's not all there, but I think the important part is there, just showing how these compare. So, again, the front walls kind of align with where we are. Our proposed house is a little wider than the one that's there, as you see. So the hatched line is that one-story portion in the front and its little stoop. All the dashed lines you see in the middle of the page are all the various levels and things that are going on in the back of the house. I don't have an accurate square footage count on the structure that's currently on the site, but it is over 3,000 square feet. But exactly how much I don't know. As I mentioned, we're shooting for 3,500. So in terms of total square footage on that site, we're not very different. So, having said that, I know there was a question about the arches as well. You probably can't see it very well in this rendering, but our front door does have an arched fan light. It's not the same as a brick arch on the front. Do you mind moving that away? Thank you. But we weren't totally oblivious to the arch. There were other images in your packet, hopefully you have those handy, that show the front, maybe a line drawing that shows that arch a little better than the front porch was very much in shadow. So my question to you is, I intend to come back in August and argue again for the demolition of the existing house in its entirety and to propose a new structure. And I've shared with you kind of why the massing is shaped like it is now and what we're trying to accomplish. And although you won't be here to actually give me your vote next time, I would like to hear how we might make this a more successful application. Knowing, however, that my client, who I guess money's not really that important, but they're spending a lot of money on this project. This is the house that they really want to build. And it's not a weekend place getaway. It will be his primary residence. So it's important to him that it be the house that he really wants. But I understand, you know, a lot of my job is problem solving, and I have to figure out all the rules and make everybody happy. So I want to try to figure out what the playing ground is here for what we would be discussing next month when we go for a vote.
Thank you, Jonathan. So, comments, questions from the rest of the commission on both wondering about the demolition that they're going to apply for again and the house that they're proposing to build? in replacement. Blair, do you have any questions about the proposed new home? Blair, can you hear me?
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Yeah, and thank you, Jonathan. You know, like I said in the last meeting, that, you know, I love the front porch, and I know that the existing home, you know, there's a barrier there on that porch, but and just, you know, if there's something that can match a little bit more, just, you know, nod to the 1925 structure. That's just my feedback, and you know, I think you've heard me on that before. And I think that, you know, the rendering is beautiful. You know, as a preservationist here, would love to see sort of the lines replicated in that home. So those are my thoughts.
Okay, thanks, Blair. Anybody else? Remember, this is a complimentary review, so they're going to come back.
Yeah, I would really like to say that I personally feel like it would have made a lot of difference to me, and I'm still real fuzzy on all this, but everybody's saying that, or Murray's saying the house burned down, it was a loss. You know, if you have George Washington's axe and you replace the head 3 times and the handle 4 times, do you have George Washington's axe? Well, I personally think you don't. So, you know, I think we're all of a sudden I'm talking about George Washington's axe here.
Yeah.
And
Joel, thank you for that, man.
I'd just like
thank
to
you for that.
And I did not realize that until about the last 30, 45 minutes.
Right.
Well, let's talk about the cherry tree.
Anybody else? Any other comments?
My only deep thought is that if my successor were to ask, I would say that looks a lot better than what's there now. So I won't be.
I'll remind you, Jolie, I don't think you were here. I don't remember whether you were online, but the new front part of this house is bigger than what's there. It's wider, as I told you already, but it's about 6 feet taller. I was going to try to take a look at whether there was any way to kind of bring the roof down a little bit. It's really not much taller than the garage on Mr. Avon's property next door, and certainly not taller than the houses across the street. So I hear Blair's comments about kind of being reflective of the house that's there, sort of several more of those down the street. So, you know, there's a lot of almost cookie cutterness in what's there, because they do sort of seem to repeat so much.
Hey, Jonathan, speaking for those that are virtual, we're not able to see the documents that you're putting up on the overhead. I think it would be helpful if you would be able to send those to staff, and then we can distribute those to all the commissioners to see, if that's okay.
Okay. I thought you were looking at the overhead, sorry.
Yeah. I did too. I'm so sorry.
I'm not looking at an overhead either, but I do agree with what Blair said. You know, the house that's there now is a big house, more than 3,000 square feet, evidently, and this one is going to be another big house. But if there were some sort of nod to the existing architecture on the street, it would make me feel more comfortable. I voted in favor of the demolition, and probably I will do the same next time, but I have a real problem with just seeing a big, nice, new, shiny house being put on that spot. I think some reference to the neighborhood is very important.
Okay, thank you, Jack. Anybody else want to make comments now?
Well, actually, I agree with Joel.
Diane, can you speak up just a little bit, please?
Yes, I do agree with Joel in that, you know, there's a lot of information that we're looking at now that we did not have at our last meeting. You know, probably next month there'll be more. But what this brings to the table really makes me see And I agree also with Jacob that it looks a lot better than what is there now. I mean, the neighborhood is not benefiting at all for what is there now. So I'm kind of going with the two guys on either side of me, Camp.
Okay, thanks, Diane.
Yes.
Yeah,
Let me ask one question.
come up to the mic, please, Murray.
It seems like there's ambition to replicate or to have this house in correspondence with the other houses on that street. What do you have on the other rental houses going down from there? What do you have on the history of those? When were they placed there?
I don't have that information on hand, but I think what the commissioners are referring to are the two houses that appear to be identical to the existing house. And the design guidelines don't recommend direct.
Kate, I can't hear you.
Sorry, can you hear me now?
No.
Hang on just a second, guys.
Diane Murray asked about the history of the rental properties down the street, and I would have to look it up because I don't know off the top of my head the date of every building on the street. But what we were getting to is that the design guidelines do recommend that you don't replicate existing historic buildings, but they do talk about the rhythm of the street and the streetscape and the it's possible that you could read that to mean that maybe the porch could be similar in some way to the existing house. Although what Jonathan has designed, I believe, does fit in with the district.
I just wonder because there seems to be an ambition to tip your hat to some of the existing houses on that street, but we don't know the historical relevance or whether or not they're even contributing properties themselves.
Well, when you look at the 1925 Sanborn, this group of houses, I'd say definitely the house, when you're looking at this house, the house to the right and the two to the left were all built around the same time. And 1420 Madison is a direct, they're twin houses, so it's immediate neighbors. The houses are sort of a grouping.
Well, of course, the neighborhood has transitioned a great deal.
Yeah.
Of course, Bramlett Hospital used to be where the Madison Square condos are now. That used to occupy that entire acre. And of course, the house, my grandfather's house, was built in 1939. It was originally a boarding house there, which burned to the ground, and then that was rebuilt in 1939. I know it's a contributing property, on my grandfather's, but I just was asking that question because I was just wondering if the ambition is to tip our hat to other properties, are those properties themselves historically relevant and contributing?
I can answer that. They are all listed as contributing, and they're all listed as 1925.
Hey, Tyler, can we switch back to the overhead? Are you back there? For those of you at home, Jonathan has put up the, is it the 1925 Sanborn?
Both. The 16 is below, which shows the boarding house, shows nothing else on that street. And then, as Murray was just saying, his family home is on the corner, and then now we see 9 cottages down the street. It's interesting that, to kind of Blair's point, every other house has an arch, and then every other one has a gable front porch. So there is a little bit of a rhythm there, but that's just asking me only to look to the left. Can I look to the right and try to blend in with that part of the neighborhood, or can I look across the street?
And obviously, if the house did burn, then this well predates that.
So one thing, it might be helpful, Murray, you mentioned, I think it was Murray, that all of the neighbors are in favor of the demolition. It might be helpful to have that information provided to us or to the commission to make the decision in August, that the neighbors that are in favor.
We can see about getting that in writing.
Yeah.
Every neighbor I've talked to, especially the ones in direct vicinity to this house in question, are in support of the demolition and new plans have been presented. Jonathan and his firm were kind enough to present us all with plans, and everybody got excited about them and they're very supportive. I know I can speak specifically to the Tans, the Toshas, all the people who have houses in direct vicinity.
Okay.
very much.
The Baileys who live across the street, as well as Daryl Crawford, who lives
My
next door.
bedroom's going on the south side of my house. I'm the one that's gonna, on the east side of my house, I'm the one that's gonna hear the construction for the next few years anyway, so I'm completely supportive.
Yeah, perhaps they could submit something.
Yeah.
I will say, for this conversation, which maybe is on the record, maybe not, another reason why I think this house may very well be non-contributing is because we just talked about all these other cottages in the rhythm. This one's painted. I don't know, we talk a lot about painting brick, but in this case, especially when you compare it to the others down the street, it's not a positive thing. And there's even a portion of the back of this house that's not painted, so you really can tell it was the same brick coloring as the rest of the houses that are there. So, not to belabor my point, but I thank you for your time and your input.
All right, thank you, Jonathan. And Murray, thank you. Okay, appreciate it.
And I will say, Camp, thank you for your service.
Absolutely.
I think even when we don't agree eye to eye, which happens.
Well, we have agreed eye to eye on something.
We have. But even when we don't, I think it's been mutually respectful. and
Same here.
I appreciate
Absolutely, man. I respect your work very much, and you. Let's see. What else have we got here? So, do you want to do the staff update, Kate, on the demolition by neglect? Yes. Please, for the outbuilding located at 507 North 14th Street.
Right, so everyone will recall that we heard from Chris Carter, and the commission voted to initiate demolition by neglect proceedings for the garage building at this property in April. We had trouble reaching the owner. We ended up sending certified mail to the owner, and she didn't receive it, but we eventually, according to the ordinance, posted notice at the property, and then we did hear from her late last week. So they're not going to be presenting today. I don't know. She said she was going to send her contractor, but I don't see anyone here. But they are coming up with a plan to stabilize and rehabilitate that structure that hopefully will be heard at the August meeting. So we are outside of that 30 days as specified by the ordinance, but she is in contact with us, and we're working with her. So right now, I believe it's moving forward.
Good.
Good point. Is there anybody on the line who is related to this case?
No.
Okay, she did not want to call in.
Okay.
Okay, so that's
All
the
right.
update there. Does anyone have questions about that?
Okay. Anybody have any questions? No questions about that? All right. So, potential demolition by neglect of 619 Van Buren, the Theora Hamlet house.
Yes. So, pretty rare that we have two demolition by neglects in the same meeting. I'm sure you're all familiar with the Theora Hamlet house on Van Buren Avenue. The city has received complaints about the condition of the house for many years, and it's recently started to look a little bit worse. And Chris Carter's here if you guys have any questions about, he did provide us a report today that I wasn't able to include in your packet. He was able to inspect, we can't enter the property, but he was able to inspect the house from the street. The city has always been worried that lack of maintenance on this house would lead to larger issues in the future. The paint is rotting away, which leaves the siding very vulnerable, which, as we know, will eventually mean that the house is structurally vulnerable. And we do believe that it's now risen to meet the demolition by neglect standards as outlined in the ordinance. It's critical. Staff believes it's critical that something is done at this point so that the house is not in further danger. The house is called the Theora Hamlet house commonly because it's due to its association with the painter Theodore Hamlet, who lived in that house from 1939 until her death. It's also architecturally significant in the city. We don't have a lot of houses that have Gothic revival influence, and particularly the woodwork on the porch and all the bracketing and that kind of thing. It's very ornate, and it's not something that we see a lot, particularly in Oxford. And it does have, it's believed to have been built around 1860, but it was also has several additions that date back to 1920. When staff again received a complaint from an area resident, we visited the site, and the sustained lack of maintenance continues, and more substantial issues are becoming visible. A portion of the fascia has fallen off of the front gable. The front porch is leaning, and it's covered up with ivy or some kind of growth right now, but it does appear to be separating, the porch appears to be separating from the front of the house. These issues, along with the overall condition of the paint and siding, are concerning. The main cause of wood deterioration is moisture penetration, and painting the wood excludes such moisture. So since the paint is peeling, moisture is getting into that siding, and it's going to continue to rot. So the purpose of your review at this meeting is to consider a preliminary determination regarding the condition of the structure. It's going to be just like we did with North 14th Street. I'll read you guys the criteria for demolition by neglect, and you'll decide if this property meets that criteria. If you do vote that the property is being demolished by neglect, the owner of record will have 30 days to begin work to rectify that situation. If we don't hear from the owner regarding any plans or permits for the property, we'll do what we did on North 14th Street, send certified mail. If we don't receive response to that certified mail, we'll post notice at the property. And I would like to know that staff has been in contact with the owners before, but has not been able to reach them in the lead up to this meeting. So I'll go ahead and read you guys those.
And Kate, just a point of clarification too, the owners do have the ability to request a hearing before the commission or attend a hearing, and they might be able to argue otherwise or make that case. So again, this is to initiate that process as well, because a lot of this is observed, as Kate mentioned, from the street. There could be more significant structural issues with that house that we're not able to see at the moment.
Yeah, that's a good point, Ben. At that public meeting that will be noticed, that's the owner's opportunity to rebut the claim of demolition by neglect.
Okay.
Okay, Kate, so let's go over this. If the commission did rule that this property needed to be demolished for reasons of neglect, then it goes to where? An open forum?
It would be a hearing at this commission, a public hearing. We would notice it prior, which that's what we'll do for the North 14th Street building next month. We just weren't in contact with the owner in time to notice it for this meeting.
Okay, so then it goes to the open meeting, and at that time the owners have an option or not to participate, and if they don't, tell me the procedure that goes forward, because I think we kind of need to know step by step on what we're dealing with here.
Because the one thing I don't want to see happen is some sort of process begun that would end in the demolition of this house.
Exactly.
Right, so Ben, maybe you can answer that further, but it's my understanding that if the owners do not comply, then the city can make the repairs and assess it back to the property owner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they can do
I think.
Hey, I'm sorry.
I'll address it right now. A couple points. I think staff wants to be clear that demolition by neglect is not the city's position of advocating for the demolition of a structure. We believe that it is being demolished by a lack of maintenance or the neglect of maintenance over a period of time that's causing substantial issues. And as a contributing resource to the district, the Secretary of the Interior Standards, they established a process for municipalities and jurisdictions to be able to, to ensure and protect those resources that are most significant to the area, to the district, to the community in and of itself. So I just want that to be clear, that process is to, now there may be a time where you have a non-contributing resource that's being demolished by neglect, that the part of the process may come back and say, you know what, we've decided to come forward with a request for demolition. I think this commission might have seen that before with some property over on University Avenue. I think Rex Brunt had a piece of property. I don't know about the Shaw House. I think Rex Brunt had a piece of property over on University Avenue that was the roof was caving in, and I think ultimately it was the plan that he proposed was just to demolish the building and then just landscape it. And so nonetheless, a process would come before this commission of how the applicants intend to remediate the issues associated with the building, paint, the structural issues, any structural issues that might exist, material issues that exist, and they would have to provide that to the commission to review in conjunction with the design guidelines, making sure that it's approvable, no different than you have for any other COA request before you. If that is not the case, which I don't know that the city's ever seen an instance where an owner of a property has not come forward to correct an issue. But I do believe that if that were to be the case, then the city does have the ability to propose that work, to do that work. I think there are legal mechanisms that exist that would allow us no different than what we have for nuisance properties, where the city's able to go in, remediate, demolish, do whatever, and then assess the property owner with the costs associated with that.
Okay, Ben, I heard you say, I think we would have the legal authority, but were you really meaning that maybe there's been a ruling by the city attorney on this, or is this something that you would definitely have the city attorney involved with in this process?
I've spoken with the chief operating officer, and that's that was the response that I received. Hollis Green, who's I believe in the room, he was a part of that conversation. So, Hollis, did I say anything that was not correct?
He's coming forward.
Thank you.
Yeah, Ben, I'm just trying to make sure I have all these questions answered and educate myself on this, because it's such an important piece of property. Yeah. And the ultimate goal is definitely not demolition. And so that's why I'm just trying to ask as many questions as I can.
Yeah, Ben, I think...
And I agree completely with Diane. If we initiate something tonight, I want to be absolutely certain that we are assured that in the end, we will be able to protect and preserve this house.
Mm-hmm. Well, of course, that's the stated goal that the staff, this board, the city wants. Related to the question, Ben stated it correctly. I don't think there's any question if the owners of that house don't want to participate, if they are obstinate or whatever, if they choose not to, and I'm not sure, we're not sure. Legal will certainly be involved. There's no way around it. Now, we can't do anything necessarily to the inside of that house under this ordinance anyway. Mm-hmm. This is all going to be outside. Mm-hmm. So Ben and I, correct me if I'm wrong, prior to COVID had a reasonable conversation with the owner, and he indicated, that they thought they would be able to take care of this themselves. Mm-hmm. But we've been unable. We've tried to communicate with them, and we've been unable. So this is the process. This is how we start. But I can't envision I can't see any way that the city, this board, anybody would allow that house to be demoed under any circumstance.
And I really appreciate that, and I'm just trying to make sure that I understand the process, and I know that that the staff is on board with saving this house, as all the commissioners are, but I just wanted to make sure that I understood the process that we would be going through if we initiated this.
It may be, it's possible that this process will at least bring them to the table.
Yes.
We've been talking about this for a very long time, and if this process gets them to the table to start a real discussion about it, it's worthwhile.
And I agree.
Just to sort of...
And I agree.
Help ease your concerns about it, Jack and Diane, we did go through this process with the Shaw House. And the original owner of the Shaw House was a young man, I can't remember his name, but he asked us for more time. We began the demolition by neglect process. He came before us. He was represented by Ray Tannehill. Ray stood over there and said, we need more time. We need more time. Are you willing to give us more time? We said, of course we are. Yes. Ultimately, the young man was able to sell the house, and the new owners were able to make the repairs. So maybe that's the same process that will happen here with the Theora Hamlet house.
And Camp, what you just said is why we need you on this board, to remind us of everything that's happened. I mean, you're a walking encyclopedia.
Just text me or
I'll just
send me
call
an
him
email.
about every
Yeah, just
case.
give me a call. Just give me a call.
Okay, so I'm going to read you guys the criteria. The ordinance states that any resource which is a landmark and all resources within a preservation district shall be preserved by the owner or such other persons as may have the legal custody or control thereof against decay, deterioration, and free from unreasonable structural defects. The owner or other persons having legal custody and control thereof shall repair such resource if it is found to have one or more of the following defects: deterioration to the extent that it creates or permits a hazardous or unsafe condition as determined by the city's building inspector; deterioration as determined by the building inspector of a building characterized by one or more of the following: those buildings which have parts thereof which are so attached they may fall and injure persons or property; deteriorated or inadequate foundations; defective or deteriorated floor supports or floor supports inefficient to carry imposed loads with safety; members of walls or other vertical supports that split, lean, list, or buckle due to defective material, workmanship, or deterioration; members of walls or other vertical supports that are insufficient to carry imposed loads with safety; members of ceilings, roofs, ceiling and roof supports, or other horizontal members which sag, split, or buckle due to defective material, workmanship, or deterioration; members of ceilings, roofs, ceilings and roof supports, or other horizontal members that are insufficient to carry imposed loads with safety; fireplaces or chimneys which list, bulge, or settle due to defective material, workmanship, or deterioration; or any faults, defect, or condition in the building which renders the same structurally unsafe or not properly watertight.
Okay.
You know, I've been thinking about this, and I think that if this brings them to the table, then we've accomplished something, and if it does not, then I guess we are neglecting our duty as commissioners.
Yeah.
Because I
Can you
don't think
repeat that,
that-
Diane, please?
I said that if this brings them to the table, then I can vote for that, because I think if we do not, then we are neglecting our duty to save this house, and for no other reason than to get more communication going than what has happened in the past.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the intent, is to try to bring them to the table. And if they can't do the repairs, then the city would have to tell them that the repairs are going to have to be done, and then it's assessed to them, and then they may not pay. You don't know where you go from there. But this is an
And if we
attempt
do
to,
not-
the demolition by neglect is a little bit of a misleading term, I think, right? This is an attempt to stop the demolition that's occurring naturally by their neglect of the property. We're not in any way suggesting demolition. We're trying to save the property.
And if we do nothing, we are standing by while this valuable asset of our community is demolished.
That's correct. That's correct. So do we need a motion to begin the demolition by neglect
Right, to
process?
initiate proceedings, yes.
Is it, and it's someone has to make a motion to approve the process and second? Okay. So do I have a
Well,
motion?
With a heavy heart, I'll make it.
Yes. Yes.
And I'll second it.
Okay. Have a motion to approve and a second. All in favor of beginning the demolition by neglect process, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All against, say nay. Okay, motion is approved. So I guess you'll keep the commission informed on the process. Thank you. Let's see, one more item, staff update on the Historic District resurvey and the grant that we are hoping that we got. Thank you.
Okay, sorry guys, I know this is a long meeting, but just a quick staff update on our work to resurvey the historic districts and our certified local government grant from the Department of Archives and History. So you guys will recall, we talked a few months ago about altering our district boundaries to align with the National Register districts for that are already, you know, it's normal to have separate local and National Register districts, but they don't always align. We thought this would bring clarity to people who were in the local Jefferson-Madison district, but also in the North Lamar Historic District. It was an attempt to sort of simplify things for everyone. Some areas you'll see in the South Lamar District were removed from the district on the advice of our consultant, Judith Johnson. Those areas were mostly like apartment complex type areas or things that were not contributing to the district. And one of the big complaints we hear about the commission and its purview is that, you know, well, there's so many things that, you know, are in the district that don't need to be, et cetera. So this seemed like a good opportunity to shave off a little bit where we could. I'd love for you guys to take a look at those maps. I'm also gonna share my screen really quick and show you what we've been working on with all of the data from our consultant. So we have a guy who works here, Leslie Rakestraw, who's like a map genius. And he has been working on a map that's gonna be available to the public that shares all of the data from the updated surveys. So people will be able to, it's very exciting. People will be able to go online and see everything that we see in the surveys without us scanning it in for them. So this is, I'm gonna send you guys this link after the meeting because the point of this, I know 2 of you guys are leaving us, unfortunately, but the point of this is that you guys have a chance to look over this new map, ask staff any questions, and any questions about the updated surveys, and that you'll formally recommend accepting the new surveys to the Board of Aldermen at the August meeting. So hopefully everyone at home can see the screen, but what we've done is you see the new districts and you can either look by photo for the property you're looking for.
Awesome.
Like, for instance, there's Amadale. And when you look here, you scroll down, and this is all of the information that we have from the survey. So you have the PPIN number, if you want to look it up on the parcel viewer. You have street number, the description from the survey, and any other historical information. Amadale's a good one because it's like our most protected property. It's a National Historic Landmark. any sources, when the survey was updated, and also if the property is contributing or non-contributing. So here we have construction date, style, it shows if it has a porch, what kind of roof line it has, and this is all information from those updated surveys. And you'll see the contributing and non-contributing. If it has a 1 there, that means that it is contributing. So if it were non-contributing, it would have a 1 under the non-contributing. You can also search the map, like let's say you want to look at City Hall, you can scroll in and click, and City Hall will appear. So anyway, we're really excited about this. Hopefully it's going to take away some of the mystery that people have when they're, we get calls all the time and people feel like we're hiding information from them or that it's, impenetrable, and we want it to be accessible to people and for them to know about their buildings. One other thing that I have not pulled up to show you guys, the last part of the work that we had Judith do was to make a separate database of properties that are listed as non-contributing and to go into more detail about why that property is listed as non-contributing. I'm not certain we're going to make that a part of this map, but it's helpful for staff to have, and it'll like for instance the discussion we just had with Jonathan, she goes into detail about why the property has lost integrity.
Yeah.
So after this meeting, I'm going to send you guys, well, not after this meeting, but probably tomorrow, I'm going to send you guys a link to this map, the non-contributing database, and these maps. And I'm happy to answer questions anyone has. You can call me, you can come in and talk about it. And we're going to be doing the same thing with the Courthouse Square Commission. And so again, the goal is that at the August meeting, you'll recommend approval to the mayor and board to accept the new surveys as fact. And we do have all the new surveys in the office. And Angie has actually been digitizing them. So we have those as well to continue including with our staff reports.
I do want to add to some things that Kate said. This has been a goal of this commission for many years of trying to make provide information to our residents of historic inside of historic districts, make it more accessible. And so this has been a brainchild of Kate and Leslie and myself for several years. And what's interesting, and I'm quite proud of, I know Kate is too, I don't know that any other city, historical city in the, I know in the state of Mississippi, it might be much broader than that. I don't think that they have anything like this. And so MDAH is now looking to us as, certainly being a leader on how we're implementing this. And this is it was kind of a pivot to our contract that we had with them. And really it wasn't anything that MDAH did, but it was how they provided, or our contract provided us the information, and we really wanted it in an Excel matrix, so that way we could incorporate it in this. And it's so much easier. It's so much easier to be able to scroll in. Everybody uses Apple or Google Maps, and so being able to scroll into a house that you're considering buying and you want to understand the breadth of what you're going to, what the architecture is, what you would have to do. It just makes it more accessible. It makes our jobs a lot easier as staff. It makes your jobs as commissioners a lot easier because you're going to have the information at your fingertips. So this has been a lot of fun, and it's really neat to be able to pioneer this, and we think it's going to get better with time.
I think that's awesome. Congratulations, guys.
I agree. This is great.
Thanks, we're excited. So you guys play with it when I send you the link. Anything that we need to alter, we can. You'll notice that we haven't finished importing all the photos yet, so that's not quite done. But yeah, anything you think would make it more user-friendly or anything like that, we want to hear about it.
Are the maps live now, or we're waiting for it to be?
They're not live on our website. Yeah.
Okay.
We're like testing it, I guess. I don't know. I wasn't ready to hit the button.
Okay.
Well, we certainly don't want to put them up until the surveys are formally adopted, right. And y'all recommend approval. The mayor and board of aldermen accept them, and then we'll start using them. We hope in September that we'll start using them and then at that time, we would make this lie.
And one thing that I don't have that we're hoping to do by August is I don't have a list of properties that change status from either contributing to non-contributing or non-contributing to contributing. So I've got to go through and compare the two lists. So we'll have that information for you guys because I think that's important.
Excellent. Any other questions of the staff? Thank you, staff, for that.
Okay, we'll talk about it again in August.
Any other business? Any other business? Okay. So, it's been lovely, you guys. And so I'm going to call this meeting, well, I have to have a motion, right?
Why don't you do it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. It's already been moved? Oh, I'll move. I shall move. I will move.
Jacob should second it.
Okay. That this, so that it's been moved and seconded that the meeting be adjourned. All in favor, say aye. It's been lovely, guys.
Thank you, Cam.